The team that has the most fun in sports and politics is the team that always wins. And that's why I have launched Comics for Kamala, a live, free Zoom. And so you're going to see your favorite comics talking about the importance of this upcoming election.
Yes, of course, it's Eric Swalwell. Yeah, he's the guy who ripped one on MSNBC, and he must have thought that was funny. So he did Comics for Kamala. Last night, a Zoom call with all those famous comedians. And they were all making fun of, the Constitution and conservatism and all that stuff. How about that? It is the Chris Plant Show. Mike Opelka in for my friend Chris Plant. Did you spend your night watching Comics for Kamala on the internets? Maybe? Likely? No, not if you're listening to this show. You likely did not. There might have been a couple of moments worth replaying, but we have to bleep so many of them that we're not going to get to it. They can't seem to use the English language without adding in F-bombs every other word. And I'm kind of upset because some of the people I find entertaining, like Ben Stiller and Nick Offerman, they were all part of Comics for Kamala last night on the internets. If you watched it, you know what I'm talking about. It is the day we learned Kamala Harris's running mate, 60-year-old Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota. He's been the governor for 5 years. He was in the National Guard 24 years and former high school teacher and football coach. He looks like what the left used to refer to as a Republican, typical white guy, typical 60-year-old white guy. And now he's just a big progressive. He's a guy that talks about diversity, equity, and inclusion at every turn. And he's even gone on record talking about putting equity and inclusion at the top of the list.
A society that does not put equity and inclusion at the center of it is certainly going to eventually come to the places where we're at.
So that's what he feels. We have to put equity and inclusion at the top of the list, or we're going to end up where I think it's your leadership that's put these Democrat-run cities in the problems that they are facing, the big mess, the morass, as Chuck Schumer likes to say. I played this clip earlier. I got to keep playing it because I just think we need to keep reminding people that Tim Walz is a socialist.
But we can get out there, reach out, make the case. And for one thing, don't ever shy away from our progressive values. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness.
There it is. And just keep playing it. That and Kamala's history. If we keep showing that, I think we're good. Now, today, the two of them will debut in Philadelphia, in the city of brotherly love. And they will be in the midst of what is anticipated to be a pretty heavy rainstorm as the remnants of Hurricane Debbie, now Storm Debbie, are tracking up the East Coast. The outer band should be spanking Philadelphia late this afternoon. At noon, J.D. Vance is going to be in Philadelphia. J.D. Vance will be sort of doing a little stalking. And I, for one, think it's a good idea. J.D. Vance is going to be out on the campaign trail and anticipated to show up in a lot of the cities where the Harris-Walz team are supposed to be going on a 7-city tour after this announcement. We're going to see that. And I think he should bring his wife with him. I know they have the kids, and someone's got to keep their eye on the kids, but his wife, Usha, she's been very public of late. She's a very quiet woman, apparently. And that works out because he's pretty, he's not shy. He's very gregarious. She was on Fox and Friends. And I thought this was a fascinating turn because we got to learn a little bit more about her as we were learning a little bit more about him. Cut 4, Jeffrey. Why the Trump J.D. Vance ticket is the best ticket.
That's a question that has a lot of possible answers, right? There are a lot of really good things that I think we can do right now. But I would point to, again, I love my husband very much, and I'd point to what he really, really cares about, which is the people that he grew up around. There are a lot of people who just haven't had the opportunity to wake up every day and know that their kids are going to have a better life than they had themselves. And I just think that JD is not afraid to push the boundaries and to shake things up in the way that will allow more people to wake up and say that. To know that they're giving their kids a better life and that is possible.
I think that's a really important message. And for so many years now, I'd say the past 3 years, a lot of people have said they're very worried that their children and their grandchildren will not live in a country that was as great as the one they grew up in. That for so many of us, we see the following generations are going to experience a much harder life, a much more difficult struggle in the economy, and maybe all around the world, as it appears, there are a lot of tensions brewing and a lot of conflicts about to boil over. And while we were able to grow up, those of us who grew up as either boomers or Gen Xers or Gen Zers, even the millennials, grew up in relative peace, aside from the Vietnam War, aside from the people who went over and served in the Gulf Wars. We had relative peace and, of course, prosperity as it compares to the rest of the world. And now it's been a struggle for a while. And I think that's a really key point for the Trump-Vance team to lock in on, that it is about the kids. And it's about your kids, because the left is all about making the kids the wards of the state. The left is all about taking control of those children. And they've been talking about it openly for 15 years. They've been talking about it for quite some time. Usha Vance, who I think is, again, a really good partner in this campaign, and I hope we get to see more of her out on the campaign trail. She was on Fox and Friends, as I said. This is cut 2. She was talking about her parents, and I think this brings a unique depth to the Trump-Vance campaign. You have a connection, like, we have Kamala Harris, who's always talking about her connection to people of color. She rarely now talks about her connection to the Indian side of her family. In cut 2 here, Usha Vance doesn't have a problem with that.
Well, I was lucky in that I grew up with incredibly loving parents who came from a different country. They came voluntarily, they came legally, and they made a life for themselves in a place where there were tons of other immigrants, all of whom had different paths to getting there, but really shared a view that this was the country that they wanted to be in, and that this was a place that they really wanted their children to grow up in, to build a future in, and to really become a part of the fabric of American society. So I think that's great. That is a wonderful thing. I also understand that, the experience that I had was because everyone came with this intention of kind of belonging, and worked really hard to do it. And I think that that's just a critical part of how our country was built and how how everyone just becomes an American at the end of the day.
It's amazing to hear political candidates talking about the importance of family and parents, isn't it? And you would think that that would be one thing that just about everybody in this country would be looking towards as a positive, that the family unit, the restoration of the family, would be a great positive thing to bring to a campaign. Not so much. We're told that that's rude to talk about having families. We're told that that's excluding people. No, it's really just recognizing that the family unit is still one of the best things. And we accept the fact that there are single-parent families. We understand it. But we also know that the benefits of having a mom and a dad involved in a child's life, not always in the same house together, but at least involved in their lives, those kids grow up better. Those kids have a greater success rate in life. Those kids tend to stay in school more. They tend to perform better. They tend to stay out of trouble and out of, quote, the system, So it's a good thing. I got one more from Usha Vance here, and I just think this is important because it really is something I didn't know anything about her other than what I had read and the stories you read, the bios you read. They met in law school. They are partners in this life with their 3 kids. They seem to be a really good couple, but it's nice to hear it from Usha herself. Cut 3, talking about the difference between herself, or the similarity between herself and Kamala Harris having a parent from India.
I think this is a great country, and one of the reasons that it's so great is that I was able to grow up in San Diego among people from all sorts of backgrounds and just feel this core identity as an American. And, you know, I don't know Vice President Harris. I imagine it was similar for her. I just think it is wonderful that we live in a place where you can be who you are, but be a part of a community that's so welcoming and supportive. It's a great place.
I love that. Can't be ashamed to say that this is a great place. America is truly a great place. And I think that Trump and the GOP wins if we focus on that. I think that's just a can't lose proposal. Put that plank in your plans to go forward. The biggest story of the day, of course, is the selection announcement of Governor Walz of Minnesota. And what is it with Minnesota and some of their strange gubernatorial picks? Jesse the Body Ventura was one of the more unusual picks. And where is he right now? I think he's living in Mexico, off the grid, peddling all kinds of bizarro conspiracy theories. If memory serves me right, he certainly took some interesting turns. But this Governor Walz really sounds like he is an avowed socialist, a guy that we can't trust with the nuclear codes, much less the economy and the military. And that's what happens when you're a heartbeat away from the presidency. So we'll talk more about him. We have more from him and some of the appearances he's made recently on TV after he declared the Trump-Vance team to be weird. He's the guy who put the branding on the Trump-Vance team and then tried to kind of step away from it, it seems. Plus, there's more from Joe Biden today, and there is a little pushback against J.D. Vance by some cat ladies, the childless cat ladies for Kamala. Yeah, we got to talk about the comics for Kamala, too. But the childless cat ladies for Kamala are showing up at something called CatCon. CatCon. Do we just put con on the end of every word and then create an event? I know there's Crime Con. I know there's Mystery Con. Now there's CatCon. Maybe we should have Opelka Con one weekend. Well, I'll work on that. But when we return, I want to share with you the childless cat ladies for Kamala and what they're bringing to the table. It's kind of interesting and funny and yet a little tragic at the same time. It's Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant on The Chris Plant Show.
You're listening to The Chris Plant Show.
It is The Chris Plant Show. Mike Opelka, my name, in for Chris Plant for one more day. He'll return tomorrow, and I appreciate all of you being here and all of the kind thoughts and nice messages on social media. The phones are having a little issue today. They may or may not be back by the end of the show. We will get to them if we do get them returning, but I have so much to get to. There is so much on the list today, and we're trying to get to all of it. Obviously, you know Tim Walz has been selected as Kamala's running mate. You're not going to really see him or hear from him until the big event tonight in Philadelphia, and then we'll see what happens going forward. I teased this story about CatCon, a convention of cat lovers, which, you know, I happen to be a dog guy. My wife is a dog person. We've been dog people for our lives and then 30 years of marriage. And we have great dogs. I don't dislike cats. I'm just not a cat person. But CatCon is happening at the Pasadena Convention Center. happened over the weekend. There were a lot of interesting people there. And because J.D. Vance made the comment about childless cat ladies and the left only played a portion of it, of course, people were outraged and seized on it. And so it is to that end we meet the ladies who sing about childless cat ladies. And they want us to know that they are, in fact, a force to be reckoned with. They want us to know that they will not be ignored. They will not be ignored. Childless cat ladies. Yes, they'll vote with a mighty meow. Yeah, they're not untalented. They apparently have some musical skill, but the childless cat ladies have taken umbrage with the comments of J.D. Vance. And there are more than one out there. There's another one. I'm not going to play it for him. I'm not going to torture you with it. But childless cat ladies, I find it entertaining. I don't think any of the people who are at CatCon and wearing the childless cat lady shirts or even selling the childless cat lady shirts, I don't think any of them were ever voting for Trump Vance. I just think that's a given. But I'm glad they can express their opinions. I don't think we lost a vote or gained a vote with the childless cat lady comment or the left's misinterpretation of it. But I had to share that with you. Absolutely had to share it with you. So many things on the list today. So many things we're trying to keep track of today. It looks like the markets are kind of recovering a little bit after the last few days of turbulence in the stock market. And Japan seemed to recover a little bit overnight. We saw some stabilizing and a return of about half of the ground they lost yesterday. The Dow today up 400 points. That's about 40% of what was given back yesterday. And it seems like the other indexes, the S&P and the NASDAQ, are also having a little bit of a recovery. So it may not be a cratering. It might have been a correction in the economy, which usually happens in the summer. We tend to see that. So there's not a lot of fear in the markets today, and I hope that goes away because nobody benefits from the market crumbling. Nobody benefits from that. I have to play something for you when we return. It is an AI ad of Kamala Harris telling the truth. And it had to be created by AI because she's not going to tell you the truth about herself. I think you're going to enjoy this one. It's Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant on The Chris Plant Show.
This is The Chris Plant Show.
It is the Chris Plant Show. It's Mike Opelka. That's me. And for Chris, one more day. He returns tomorrow from his vacation. And there's a gigantic political mess here for him. Not so much on the GOP side, but we now know that Kamala Harris has chosen Minnesota Governor Tim Walz to be her running mate. And she says his commitment to families and helping working families is unparalleled. Well, I would argue that J.D. Vance is also a man of the people. But he's also a guy who believes in conservatism, not so much all of this other wokeness that comes out of the far left. Minnesota is an interesting state. Minnesota is a state where we see Ilhan Omar, the Somali immigrant, the woman that was correctly identified as the American ingrate, came here, I believe, as a child, and now has gotten elected a couple of times to represent a heavily gerrymandered district where a lot of Somalis live. And she keeps getting reelected. It's kind of like the Hank Johnson thing. And she is one of those members of the squad who can be reliably progressive at every turn and anti-American in many, many ways. And so it doesn't really surprise me. And if I go back this year, earlier this year, I think it was, Minnesota changed its state flag. And there are a lot of people who say that the new flag looks a lot like the flag from Somalia. And I'm thinking, do they have that much influence? Well, when they changed the flag, there is a video of a press event that was about to happen. And the governor stood up from his chair and took out the old flag and put in the new flag, the one that people are saying looks a lot like Somalia. And he said, there, that's better. That's a lot better. I just wonder. I think we're going to learn a lot about Governor Walz in the very, very, very near future, like between today, right now, and when they take the stage together in Philadelphia. So stay tuned for a lot to be shared about Governor Walz as the running mate for Kamala Harris. And somebody pointed out to me, someone said, I think it was Barbara, sent me a message on social media saying, wait, they're the same age? They're the same. Yes. He's 60. She's almost 60. She's literally weeks away from being 60. And Kamala Harris certainly looks a lot younger than Tim Walz in my book. Now, does that mean anything? Well, maybe she's had an easier life. Who knows? Maybe it's good genes. We don't know. But they certainly don't look the same age to me. Just throwing that out there. I talked about AI, artificial intelligence, which Kamala has trouble explaining. And it's really kind of insulting when you hear her explain it. Well, it's a word salad thing she does. There is on the internets, which, by the way, is celebrating an anniversary today. I'm one of the people who likes to look at history and see what happened on this day back in the day. By the way, in 1991, a guy named Tim Berners-Lee, he's a hyphenated guy. Tim Berners-Lee published the very first website, not Al Gore, Tim Berners-Lee. And if you go to info.cern.ch, you can see the first website saved there for history. So the internet really not that old, 33 years old today. Happy birthday, internet. 33 years old, and look how much change it has brought to the world. We should talk about the Google ruling as well. That happened yesterday. Google might have some problems going forward. We'll talk about it. But speaking of AI, artificial intelligence, which has gotten so much better in terms of what it can do. But when a technology improves, it also means it's ripe for abuse. And in this case, it's ripe for abuse to make fun of Kamala Harris. I don't know how much longer this will be allowed to exist on the internet because things that poke fun at Democrats have a tendency to disappear, while things that poke fun at Donald Trump and conservatives have a tendency to be amplified. So this was a statement that showed up not that long ago, and it is AI using Kamala Harris's voice. She never said this stuff, but maybe some of it's true. Now, the last two quotes were actual quotes from Kamala Harris. The rest of it was all AI generated. And that's why the next 90 days, because we are now officially exactly 90 days from the election, the next 90 days, I guarantee you we are going to be getting some amazing, amazing clips that actually never happened. And not that we need too many of them, because so many of the things that Kamala Harris says are actually horrible things. And we don't need to put her through the AI machine. We don't need to make her sound bad. She gives us enough as she exists. Just her own words make her sound bad. And this is where I hope the Trump team will exploit that and make use of that over and over and over again. And not just Kamala, her husband, currently the second gentleman that we heard over the weekend had fathered a child with a nanny. Wait a minute, I should correct myself. Looking into the details of the story in the Daily Wire, Doug Emhoff, the second gentleman, current husband to Kamala Harris, when he was married previously, he allegedly, and I guess he's admitted to it, so it's not alleged, he had an affair with a nanny and she was impregnated, and there's no answer as to whether that child was born or was aborted. But isn't it interesting that Doug Emhoff is a guy who thinks that America has a problem with toxic masculinity? Doug Emhoff, second gentleman, has a problem with toxic masculinity, and yet he got the nanny pregnant.
Too much of toxicity. It's masculine toxicity out there. And strength is how you show your love for people.
So strength is how you show your love for people. And you're toxic male if you do what? He also has weighed in on, Emhoff, second gentleman, hoping to be the first gentleman. That would be another check in the box for Democrats for wokeness. They got the first, second gentleman, then they would have the first gentleman if she were to be elected, God forbid. Emhoff was asked about abortion and what he thinks is so vital about abortion. And isn't it interesting to hear that abortion is really important for men?
As you think about sort of the role of men in pushing for abortion access, is there anything more you would say to them?
It's affecting men's ability to plan their lives.
So whether or not abortions are available is affecting men's ability to plan their lives. Huh. That's very interesting, isn't it? That's a little twisted, isn't it? Yeah, I think he's got some toxic masculinity we haven't quite talked about enough. I do think it is about showing these people, Kamala Harris and Governor Walz now, in their own words. I think the decision on who's going to win this election is going to be made by the middle. If you're a Trump fan, you're voting for Trump. If you're a Democrat, you're likely going to march with the rest of the sheep, and you will vote for whomever is put up there. Never mind, nobody was allowed to select a candidate. The candidates were chosen and handed to them. But I do think it's going to be the middle, and the middle tends to vote on those kitchen table issues that Joe Biden used to talk about all the time. Remember when he was the candidate? I'm old enough to remember when Joe Biden was the candidate that Democrat voters selected. That's how old I am. Just amazing. And I've lasted this long. But I remember when Joe Biden used to talk about things like inflation and the kitchen table items and whether or not you're going to be able to afford, to pay your bills. Well, Kamala Harris was asked about inflation and what she's going to do about it. And this is why I'm so eager to watch Kamala Harris debate Joe Biden. This is why I'm to debate Donald Trump. I had a Biden moment there. To replace Joe Biden on that debate stage. This is why I'm so eager to watch and see Kamala Harris against Donald Trump.
What else are you going to do to fix this problem with inflation?
All right, thank you. Well, let's start with this. Prices have gone up, and families and individuals are dealing with the realities of that bread costs more, that gas costs more.
There it is. Absolutely. The best thing we could have is a debate on the issues with Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. That's the absolute number one best thing we could have. And we have to get that happening. Now, it may happen on September 4th. It may happen on September 10th. Donald Trump is still pushing for September 4th, right after the Democrats get out of their convention. And Kamala still has the convention halo, and he wants it on Fox. Kamala's still dug in, saying, no, you agreed. You agreed to September 10th. Yes, well, yeah, we already talked about this. Legal expert saying when you make a contract with a person, you just can't swap the person. That's not how that works. That's not how the law and contracts work. And I think contract law is like one of the first things they cover in law school. Then again, she had to take the bar a couple of times to get to the passing thing. Didn't happen right away. So we'll see what happens. I do think it would be absolute stone cold gas to see Donald Trump on the stage with Kamala Harris. The contrast, as they say, could not be any clearer.
You know, we have to stay woke. Like, everybody needs to be woke. And you can talk about if you're the wokest or woker, but just stay more woke than less woke. Yeah.
You know what woke means? It means you're a loser. Everything woke.
Yes. We know everything woke turns to something we can't say on the radio, Mr. Trump. Yes, it rhymes with it. He likes to say that. Kamala wants to be woke. She supports the woke. I just can't wait. I can't wait. Whether it is the 4th of September, the 10th of September, the perfect thing would be for the American people to get two of those, to have that happen on two separate occasions. I think we the people would like to see that. We, the voters, would like to see that. And now that we're going to have a presidential debate, at least that's what we're anticipating, when are we going to have the vice presidential debate? Will it be after any presidential debates, or will it be between them? Because J.D. Vance and Tim Walz, I don't think either of those guys are afraid to debate the other. And I think that also would be a very great moment for us to see. All right, I have to cover a couple more topics here today because things are very, very busy in the news world. We have to get an update on the airbase that housed American troops that came under attack yesterday. Find out if Joe Biden was asked, by the way, he was walking around the streets of Wilmington, Delaware yesterday. He was asked if Iran will stand down. We have his answer. We'll share it with you. There is more news, as I said, about the former head of the Secret Service and what she wanted to do with the cocaine that was found at the White House, the evidence, as it were. And again, we have to talk about the Google decision. The Google decision, and more from the Comics for Kamala Zoom call that happened yesterday. It's a busy show today. It is Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant on The Chris Plant Show.
There's only one Chris Plant. The Chris Plant Show.
It is the Chris Plant Show. Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant. He returns tomorrow. Thanks for being here. Tomorrow, Mr. Plant returns. And tomorrow will be 89 days before the election. Isn't that amazing? Some people, like in Pennsylvania and I think Illinois, I'll have to pull up the list of early voting. There's going to be voting in September, possibly before we even have a debate between the candidates. And I think that's kind of what the Democrats want, because they really don't want Kamala Harris in front of a debate audience facing off against Donald Trump and being asked questions about the DHS data that we got yesterday. Yesterday, we received news that the Department of Homeland Security said that between the fiscal years 2021 and 2023, at least 99 illegal aliens on the FBI terror watch list were stopped and then released into the U.S. So Border and Customs Protection grabbed these guys. Maybe there were some women in there. But if they're on the terror watch list, it seems like it's mostly men of military age. So I'm going to generalize and use Chicago speak because that's where I come from. You guys, generally 99 men, illegal aliens who are on the FBI terror watch list were caught and then released into the United States. Now they're going to point to the fact that, and this is at the southern border, we're not even talking about the northern border, where we know there have been breaches. We know there have been breaches. Remember when Kamala Harris was campaigning back in the day and she was upset because Donald Trump wanted a wall to protect us from terrorists? Remember what she said? Yes, I do.
This is irresponsible, it's the height of irresponsibility for the commander-in-chief to suggest that we have to build a wall across our southern border because there are terrorists who are trying to invade the country. It couldn't be farther from the truth.
Couldn't be further from the truth. At least 99. At least 99. Now, how many terrorists did it take for the attack on September 11th? Was it 17? Was it 19? So are we just anticipating 5 possible September 11th terror attacks? At least 99. And they're going to point and say, well, look, we have 34 watch listed that we still have in custody. The terror watch list aliens from at least 36 different countries have been apprehended at the southern border, including from places like Afghanistan, Tajikistan, Iraq, Lebanon, Kyrgyzstan, Somalia, Syria, Uzbekistan, and Yemen. And remember, the Yemeni people, the terrorists, the Houthis, are the ones firing the missiles in the Red Sea at the cargo ships. And this is just yesterday. Just yesterday released. I'm not talking about the overwhelming 15 million that are now a problem for our entire economy. I'm talking about people who are a problem for our security. The economy is one issue. The safety and security of Americans is the other issue. We have a kakistocracy. We have a government by the worst possible individuals. And I haven't even gotten into the story that broke yesterday about the former head of the Secret Service who wanted to get rid of the evidence of cocaine found in the White House. Gee, I wonder why that happened. I wonder why she was pushing for that. There's so much to get to today. It's Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant. That's right, my buddy Chris Plant. He'll be back tomorrow right here on The Chris Plant Show.